Hello and welcome to this episode of the Event Manager Podcast, the podcast for event professionals featuring leading innovators in the event industry. My name is Milan Evsch and I'm the editor-in-chief of Event MB. In this episode, titled Having a Positive Mindset Can Be Learned, I have the pleasure of speaking with association leader Kai Troll. We covered things like how job titles and accolades are not important. What is important is what we are creating. We cover the importance of choosing our environments, which include people and the activities around us. We cover how a good leader must be authentic to really lead effectively. We cover how many investors are looking to invest in people more so than products or services. And we cover how the absence of long-term planning adds stress and takes away the feeling that people can achieve their objectives. I hope you enjoy listening to this conversation, and I invite you to check out the other episodes of the Event Manager Podcast, which also feature insights from today's most influential event professionals. You can find all the episodes on our website and subscribe through your favorite podcast service. Welcome to today's episode of the Event Manager Podcast. I am joined by Kai Troll, Association Leader. Kai, welcome to the Event Manager Podcast.
Thank you very much for the invite, Miguel. It's great to be here.
So you are a man that wears many hats, as they say. We see your title here as Association Leader, but I know you do many things. Could you tell us a little bit about your journey and how did you get to be you?
Yes, I'm still trying to figure that out, how to be me. But I mean, basically, I'm German. I'm Brussels-based at the moment. I've been away from Germany 32 years and been around the world on 4 different continents, and always enjoyed the learning process that goes with it. My academical background is I have a MBA in international business management and a PhD in economics. So it doesn't necessarily align with anything I do today, except maybe the business part. I mean, I see myself as a business person, as a social entrepreneur also. In anything that I do, I'm trying to connect the dots and create value in the field with associations and in their developments, but also in regards to the regular business world, which to me isn't too much different than, let's say, the world of associations, or especially when we then go into events, because that is, of course, business.
And what was your kind of journey into all of this? Did you start working with associations and events, or how did your career develop?
Yeah, I've joined a program called Up with People when I left Germany in 1989, just the year when the wall came down, and went to this program called Up with People. And there we went on a 1-year tour throughout the world where I played the drums in a sort of musical show. So I've been always involved in entertainment or music or some sort of events. And since early stage, this is what I do. I was more on stage than off stage. And I think this is a bit the journey also that I'm still on. And then at some point, went to business school, went to a large global consultancy firm, which made me think and learn very differently. And then came back into the nonprofit world, working with large global international organizations and associations. And I decided to stay on that journey until I then got also again more involved in the corporate and the business world.
Brilliant. Sounds like you've had quite an interesting journey so far, and I'm sure it continues. So, important question: how do you explain to your friends and family who are not in the industry what you do?
Yeah, my daughters just asked me that a few weeks ago when they had to explain at school what their parents do. And basically, they don't know a whole lot about the details what I'm doing. They know I'm working in the events field, but they generally see me as an association leader, being involved with a different type of events, through the association world, but also through the corporate business. So they generally say I'm a businessman, and Papa connects people around the world. This is sort of their answer. But it is indeed, let's say, one thing that to me doesn't matter so much. To me, and I tell my girls, Sophie and Emily, they're 13 and 14, I said, most important is not whatever title you have, but what you're creating. Because I really want them to also be inspired not by jobs or titles, but actually what they are going to do, and that they have fun with it, and that they are creating something that is valuable to their environment and to the world. So that is usually my main message to them.
I like that message. You mentioned connecting people around the world, that is, the thing that you do. It sounds like that's quite important in your career and in your life. Could you expand on that a little bit?
Yes, connecting people, connecting the dots to then create valuable business has always been important. I mean, I look very much at the human factor of things. In association world, you know that we are using a hashtag called "It's always about people," and I very much believe in this. It's not about the plans or about the funding. It's usually about the people who then make that all possible. So yes, people are at the core to what I do. I believe that I'm able to bring teams together that work well, and that I need to also keep motivated. But their mission to me is also then to go out and inspire others. So connecting people, interest in intercultural business communication was always a big element. Understanding why business works in some cultural settings and why not, in order to then enable successful business, and at the end of the day also human relationships. That was always at the core to anything I've ever done.
Very important. I think most of the event industry, I think, would agree with you. But so do you see yourself as part of the event industry?
Partly. I guess, you would say when you're involved in about 30 events per year, you are naturally part of that events industry. That's about 10% of my time, or how I spend my time. And I think with the development of some event properties, especially in the last 3, 4, 5 years, that I helped actively drive and founded, I think I would say, yes, I'm now a part again of that events industry. But at the same time, I lead organizations, and part of that is the event side, but it's not all of it. And whether I run an organization or a company, to me, there's not so much difference. But I think we are in the people's business. And this is whether it's on the event side or associations or corporates. This is what we need to make work at the end of the day, and we need to bring people together who can successfully collaborate. Yes, I would say I'm now part again of the events industry, but not only.
Super interesting. So yeah, I was going to ask you what makes you enjoy the event industry, but I guess I would ask you what makes you enjoy what you do, and part of it being in the event industry.
I mean, the events industry is one of the most fabulous industries that we have around the world. I mean, we bring people together who collaborate from all sorts of different cultures. We bring them together, and I believe through that interaction with each other, whether it's on the buyer and supplier side, or just on the work side, we help making the world a better place. But what we do through events, and this is what I enjoy and always try to achieve, is we create experiences, unforgettable experiences, emotions. We create magic to people and for people that they shouldn't forget, and that should inspire them also to go out, or maybe also ideally to change their minds, to go out and do better in some way or the other. So I think that is the beauty of the events industry. And I think, I mean, obviously, we love that. What I sometimes think is a bit tricky is that we glorify this a bit too much, and we don't necessarily get back to the real importance of the events business, and that I think is very tricky in times like this, when we have a pandemic and a lot of people are being worried and so on. And I think there are also a few solutions and opportunities that come out of that. But at the same time, what we need to do and what I enjoy is really creating impact and emotion and just an experience that people remember.
That's really interesting. So what part are you saying that we glorify too much? You mean the event setup, the event kind of logistics? Is that the side that you think we glorify too much?
Yeah, I think generally we focus a lot on too little on the content, too less on the content. I think that becomes more important. And whether we have, and obviously I'm not so involved in the operational elements, so I'm not saying is this good or bad, but whether there are sometimes 5 screens or 2 screens, maybe doesn't matter so much, because I think at the end of the day, it's still going back about being the experience and also the content and the networking and so on. And we gain a lot from the outcome of a successful event, but we cannot glorify an event that has happened because it's history, and we need to move forward. And I think at this moment in time, a lot of people talk about what they've done in the past. But the past is history, and now we need to move forward, and we need to create specific goals, and we need to help each other, I feel, also to create goals and help guide people who are maybe less experienced, who are less junior. There are a lot of freelancers out there who I think know to organize events, but they actually don't really understand how to build a business. And this is, you can always glorify the event side, but you also need to get a grip on your business, on the business side. And I think that is something that a lot of people at the moment need a lot of help with.
Very interesting. Makes sense to me. So during the COVID pandemic, we've had almost 2 years now of this mainly stop with events, a few starts, but then some stops. How has this impacted what you like to do? You said you started talking about connecting people. Have you been able to connect people and do your job as a leader despite not being able to meet in person for most of the last 2 years?
Yes, there are 2 elements in this. One is the external part and one the internal part. So I have, of course, teams that I manage and that we need to keep in good spirit. And I always say we, I never say me, but I see me being part of them, and therefore I need to get a sense about how they're doing and how they're feeling. So that is something that, my role has tremendously changed in that way. I wouldn't say we are moving slower. In fact, I think in some ways we are moving faster, which helps, or which creates some of the trouble I think that people have, the fast speed and everything. But my role has changed internally very much from, I wouldn't say taking on the role of an HR person, but definitely much more of a mentor. The relationships in my group has very much strengthened because we do regular calls, because we also, I ask everybody to listen to each other and to listen to each other's concern and support each other if support is needed. And I asked everybody to express issues and challenges that they have, whether it's personal or professional. So that is one thing that I need to create an environment where people feel comfortable and open enough to actually talk about the challenges that occur when we sit at home, where we think actually we have a very aligned team and work, and we have the supplier calls and everything. But at the same time, people are not doing too well, and we need to look at that. And I think it would be foolish to think or to tell ourselves we are doing better than some people are. But it's our role as leader to really help identify that and go to people and say, is there any help that you need? From an external point of view, I think the acceleration of activities has, I think, slowed down. We're looking more at quality now, less at quantity. We're doing indeed less online sessions. We're trying to go back to in-person events. The beauty of events generally lies into bringing the human kind together. This is what this is about still in the future. I don't think that any technology or any engagement platform can ever, and we know that ever, fit in to fill that purpose. So it's about the human interaction, and we have that less now. So we need to create it in different ways. And the reality is that we are going to be in this situation not only for another year, but for a few more years. I believe that. In a discussion with the One campaign not too long ago, we talked about the impact of global events, and I think the reality is that we see less large global events. We will see highlight events, but we don't measure them anymore by the number of people, but we measure them by the impact that they create. And this is something that we also need to explain when we talk about events and the role that has changed. We need to talk about these different type of expectations. So it's not only about the numbers, the content, but it's generally the whole development that we are going to see in the next few years that we need to also be ready for, and not tell ourselves this is just another year and then we are all doing what we are doing again. So that's at least what I believe.
That sounds like quite a proactive approach. So you're saying, let's not just wait until we can do what we used to do, but let's figure out ways of achieving these objectives while we can, and not rely on big numbers necessarily, but quality of the gatherings that you're producing.
Yes, and I think we need to push people to do so. I think we need to push people to change their mind in many ways, whether that is the impact side, the sustainability side, the planning side. I think there'll be a lot of changes in many ways that we will see that we don't necessarily foresee. But my role as a business leader is to keep people motivated and to at least provide some sort of a vision where this is going, at least for our part. And this is a definition that is very individual to each PCO, to each event prof, to each freelancer, to each organization. But the importance is, and this is where I need to really take the lead, is to together with the team create that vision, because as more as they're involved, as more they're also coming with us on that journey. Because at the end of the day, it's not my event or our event, but it's actually the association's event, and especially and more so the attendees event. We are on the organizing side, but the event is clearly for attendees, and I think we need to get better about why we do events, the purpose of the events. Sometimes we also need to say why we do this at all. We are all very creative and motivated in this industry, at least when it comes to the organizational and implementation side. But I think maybe in the future, less will be more.
Very interesting. Yeah. And so I wanted to kind of go a little bit further with that. You talked about things that you want to see different in the industry. Are there specific areas that you'd like to see change in the event industry? Maybe because of the pandemic, or maybe things that you would have liked to have seen change before the pandemic?
Yeah, I think what happened before already, if we look at, for example, one of the event properties we created with the Association World platform related to, for example, the Geneva International Association Forum, or the launch now of the Brussels International Association Forum. People, the association market or industry in Geneva felt that there wasn't an annual event for them in Geneva, but at the same time you have 100 or thousands of associations in Geneva who very regularly do events. They felt they wanted an annual event in Geneva where they are. So it didn't mean they want actually to travel to other events to get the learning. They felt that we are a lot of organizations here where we are, so why not get together? And I think we will see that. And as a result of it, of the success of the previous GF event, we are launching a BF, we are launching the Washington International Association Forum, we are launching the Nordic International Association Forum, bringing together, so these are all international events, but bringing people together on a more regional level, and then at some point connecting all of them together through a CF event. So what we will see, and I think that has obviously started already, is more events, less highlight events. We will see 10, 15 really highlight events that people will refer to around the world that in the future still bring together 50, 80, 100,000 people when things normalize a little bit again. But I think we are learning to get a grip on not only having a 1 year annual conference, but in addition to that, we are holding several smaller conferences, regional ones, or even by theme or interest, by pillars, conferences that are coming in addition. And the interesting part will be how that whole community connects in between the events. I think that moving from one event to the other was a good model and a natural model in the past, but I think people are interested in continuing the conversation in the future about certain topics, and we somehow have to enable that in a better way. The other part where I see a big difference and a new trend is definitely that how events will be funded or could be funded in the future, about the strategic partnerships that are brought into an event. And I'm personally at the moment involved in 2 initiatives that actually relate to that. One is the AIP program, the Association Investment Program, where we find investors to invest in larger association events that help develop, again, the event itself or the association. And the other initiative at the moment, which is a very interesting one, is a bit like the Dragon's Den idea for those people who know that. We created a fund with 8 investors that are interested in investing in the event business, in PCOs or event organizers who are at the moment challenged in developing their business. Clearly, a lot of PCOs or freelancers are really excellent in what they do, but they need maybe a collaboration partner or a business partner to bring that business to the next level. And this is also one way now that we are approaching the event profs or event business with, just to provide that opportunity to bring in additional funding and additional resources, maybe to help build other businesses. And that will directly influence then also the organization and the funding of other events, generally speaking.
And with these investors and this kind of setup, I mean, there's always been investors in events, but are they now more visible? Is that the change? Like there's more communication or external communication around like the investment side of things?
If there is a corporate investor and they see that there is value for them to do that, yes. Some of these people that are investing are actually high net worth individuals, and they are not necessarily too public people, and they don't necessarily are on a big ego trip to say, this is now also again what I'm doing, because they already invested in many other startups or generally have very functioning businesses. They are large size corporations or ultra high net worth individuals who have an interest to help develop a business, but also again gain a return of investment.
Okay. And do you feel like these changes were COVID kind of impacted, or were they things that were happening that were accelerated in some way?
No, I think that is a result of the pandemic, generally speaking, also because a lot of the PCOs are not doing too well. I think that is also something we need to recognize, just simply because a lot of the PCOs don't have cash flow for 5, 8, or 10 years that helps them to survive. I think generally it creates an opportunity similar to, let's say, investors who, let's say in the corporate world or small, medium-sized family business world, there are a lot of, let's say, families who don't have successors because they don't have, children, they don't inherit the business or so. And they are actually looking for investors to buy out or take over that business. And I wouldn't say it goes to that extreme, but I think if a PCO or an event organizer can benefit from a strong financial addition that comes in and helps them to either get back the business on track or to bring that and elevate it onto the next level, then I think that should normally be an attractive proposition. But at the same time, it is really, companies or event organizers need to pitch their businesses. And I think what is interesting in particular is, let's say, young, dynamic, very ambitious event profs or PCOs who really also understand what change might be. I mean, I would say that, we need at the moment a lot of new ideas. And it's not only about legacy and sustainability and this and that, but really creating, a much more valuable business than we had so far. I mean, we all know the key players around the world and they are very strong. And I think there is generally potential by a lot of smaller business or boutique agencies to also now really think about what their next 5 or 10-year plan and business objectives should be.
Yeah, it does sound like you're also saying that the business of events is something that is more discussed now. I think PCOs and other organizers have always understood the business, but it does sound like you're saying that associations and other organizations are more openly discussing the business of events and more openly kind of understanding and investing in events. Is that what you're seeing?
Yes, I think it's a bit different to each market. Let's say in North America, I think the discussion is much more open because on the European side, I think people worry a lot about the nitty-gritty before they really get excited about a vision or an idea. But generally speaking, yes, I think people understood that whatever events we are going to do in the future need to be actually more profitable than in the past. So I think that is something, the whole profitability around the organization and the output of an event becomes more important. And reason for that is that I think people understood to better focus now. But at the same time, there is still a difference between focusing and having a good business plan or goals or objectives. I think we learned maybe by less traveling, I mean, sort of the idea of what is now really important, either for us personally. A lot of people are still in that process, but I think we also understood that more on the business side about how we run organizations, but there is still a lot of help needed. And I think an investor is also always interested in not only bringing in the money, but also helping to build the business if possible, because that is a crucial element. Otherwise, and very often, I think, like always with startups, the investment into the business is one thing, but the investment in the person who runs the business or in their team is really fundamental. I think most investors would say, I'm not investing only in a product or in a service, but really also in that team, because I really believe that team can do this.
Yeah, really interesting. I've heard that more and more. I think the team is really important and investing in the people. And I guess people have shown resilience and have been able to pivot or change dramatically during the COVID pandemic is also an important sign that there are people that are worth investing in, right?
Yes, and there are actually great examples for ideas. I mean, if you look on Instagram, all the creativity that the event profs show there, it's amazing. So, I mean, it's really good to see that. But because I think there are more freelancers also in that world who maybe need a bit more that business guidance, I think there needs to be an environment that helps, especially younger or more let's say the senior people will always know what to do, but it's about the more junior and middle level people who I think need guidance in now helping to create their event business, really. And I think we will see much more collaboration between event agencies that we had in the past. I think in the past it was very competitive, and it always will be, of course, but there is always there's now a sense for collaboration, strategic partnerships. I think that is really coming on people's radar, because this is one of the ways a business can grow, that you bring people on that maybe do something slightly better than you can do, and you create that alliance. And there's only good in doing so.
So Kai, you recently posted something on Facebook that I think, a lot of people could relate to, which was really about keeping your head up, keeping positive during this COVID pandemic period. And it does come across that you are quite a positive person, and you gave some advice. You talked about not surrounding yourself with complainers. You talked about encouraging and supporting others in need. You talk about not focusing on the results and also on the journey, being realistic about professional planning, and not letting go of great ideas. I think they're all incredible topics, and they could all be a whole podcast in a sense. But is there any particular reason that you're so positive, or that you were able to, I guess, inspire people in this way and kind of lift them out of maybe their funk?
I mean, if I would say it's my nature, that would probably be wrong to say. I think I learned being much more positive, but generally I have to say I'm thankful for always having been in a positive environment. But what I learned maybe the last 15 years is also to choose my environment. I don't think that we are sometimes good at choosing our environments wisely that help us either professionally or personally. And I think it's something that people need to look at more, especially in this time of maybe isolation, where people don't feel so well. But I mean, I'm generally in quite inspiring environments myself. What I try to avoid.
Sorry, what do you mean by choosing your environments? Is it choosing the people you're with, the places you are? Could you expand a little bit on what you mean by that?
Yeah, we're a bit limited with the places these days, but it is true. It's primarily the people that surround me and let's say the activities around me. So what I try to avoid is people who are always looking at the problem. I mean, I buy into that to a certain extent when I try to change their mind to say, okay, but also, what are actually the solutions to that? But generally, I don't have so much time to think negative and think about the problems. It's my nature to right away always think about the solutions. So when we have challenges or the problems to discuss in team meetings, I'm trying to get everybody's mind moving towards a positive mindset, in a sense that everybody needs to come up with alternatives for solutions. what created the problem or who created the problem is something we can evaluate later, but we need to focus our minds immediately on the solution. There's one example that I maybe can mention is when I was 19, I had a car accident. I was driving on the highway and I saw this aquaplaning coming up, and I didn't slow down, and I was, I drove into it, and I knew immediately that there wasn't a whole lot I could do. And before I hit the other car, I didn't think, holy moly, what is happening to me, or, that I had an accident. I immediately thought, okay, when I get out of that car, what am I going to do? It was then when I realized this is now how my mindset. I don't know if it is trained that way or if it is naturally that way, but when there is an issue, I immediately turn on the switch to think about the solution. It's something I think that people can learn, but you can do training and courses with that, but I think it's also the environment and the life you're choosing a little bit. The work I do, I'm inspired by people generally, and they can be whatever age. I'm inspired by my Emily, who is 13, and I'm inspired by high net worth individuals who have an enormous impact in the world, who are 78. I usually, I'm lucky, I guess, in that sense that now, with 54, that I can connect all these dots. But I think that the positive mindset is above anything else. And sometimes, and that is very important, we just cannot take ourselves too seriously, because it actually doesn't matter to anybody else what I'm doing or who I am. What maybe matters is what we are creating for others and the impact we have. And this is what I usually tell people. And when I say, if it's now not the time to implement a great idea, but we are convinced it is a great idea, then let's park the idea. Let's not forget about it, because the time will come when we can dig that out again and bring it on the table and discuss it with people who then help implement that great idea.
Sounds like a very positive place to be. And when you were kind of explaining your way of dealing with it, it did sound like part of it was just being a good leader. Do you feel that is part of, or I guess my question would be more, do you feel that being a good leader is also having a positive mindset and being able to getting everybody around you and to have a positive mindset and to look at problems from a positive mindset perspective?
To me, a good leader is if someone is authentic, first of all, because if you're trying to fool people or just talk away up or out of things, then this isn't working. People know this, and I guess at some point, I always say, shit brings you to the top, but it doesn't keep you there. It's a term that I think about a lot, because I see and know a lot of high-level people, who were in their positions for a short period of time, and then that balloon blew up. I think the authenticity is important, but yes, what we need to do as leaders is to inspire people, and we can learn to do that, but we also have to be that example. For people to do their job well, especially in this time, whether it's online or offline, people still need to have a good level of motivation. And we achieve that in different ways, but it comes back basically to the human element of things, and the hashtag, it's always about people. I myself have at the moment 2 or 3 people that are falling through the net, and I told them, if you want to take a week off, fine, if that's what you need, you're still getting paid. It's not a problem at all. We also try to implement for some people, a 4-day week. So people, I guess these days, one of the elements, regardless what business is, people working from home, but what does that do actually to the reporting and the controlling? A lot of leaders not trusting their teams, what they do at home. And I think that is something we need to look at differently. But in our case, we decided to implement a 4-day week for the people who wish to have more free time or take a long weekend and feel they get their work done in 4 days. They're happy to do so. We also paid for a project for a management course, time management course, for them to get that right. Some people started it, and for most of them it worked well. Others said, no, that doesn't work for me. I'm putting myself too much under pressure in 4 days. So, I mean, there are different ways to apply our leadership skills, but I think it has to be clear also, who we are and who we want to be as a leader. And my style of leadership is pragmatic in some way, but also very human-centric. And I look at the team not in a holistic approach, but I look at them each individually and try to then reflect. And it's a lot of work, and it takes a lot of, let's say, energy and power out of me as well. And some people listening to this would say, holy moly, I can't do this, it takes too much time. It is true. I spend half of my time doing that at the moment. And I still need to get all my other works done. But at this moment in time, it's an important element to do because, we need to operate differently at the moment. And we'll see how long that goes and what we actually then keep from the way we operate and how I lead and so on. And,
it sounds like you're making good progress in trying to, adapt and figure out the best way to work with everybody, right?
Yeah, it has to be very much on an individual basis without losing track of what we actually all need to do in terms of the goals and objectives. But how we reach that becomes much more individualistic now.
Absolutely. That does seem like a good leadership practice and much needed to figure out how everybody wants to work and wants to be part of the solution. So any particular, to wrap up, any particular vision that you have for the event industry or for what you do for the future? It sounds like you're working on a lot of ways to bring people together, to improve the way you work, to improve what you do. Do you have a vision for what that's going to look like in the next few years?
Yeah, I think we will turn more into a high-performance team, more than we are at the moment. And we also need external help to achieve that. But that is also the feeling of the team that we want to achieve more as a team. And it is my role to enable them to do that, to do better, to be more happy in their roles. One of the things I don't want is lose people. I think it's tricky to hire new people. It's difficult to get, the hiring process takes long. So, it again comes back to the human element of it. But I think we need to, bless you, we need to become more of a high performance team. And that, vision was also expressed by the team. What that means in terms of goals and objectives needs to be seen. I think we can go back to plan a bit more long-term again, maybe up to 5 years, and then divide that up into annual business plans. It was obviously for everybody, I guess, more difficult, but I think there's a real eagerness to start planning a bit long-term again. I spend a lot of time raising funds generally, whether it's for associations or for startups or for other businesses. And the long-term planning is really fundamental in that. For one of the organizations, I need to raise about 7 million a year. You don't do that from one year to the other. This is a plan, that goes over 3 to 4 years. And when I say that amount, it's an annual amount. So, it's not anything that you raise from one year to the other, but it needs much longer term planning. And we need to get back to that, especially, now when we see the light at the end of the tunnel. It's not only always event related, but what we need to do is, and I need to enable that, is that people have the feeling they can achieve their goals and objectives in their own way and own terms. And I think that that mentoring role remains in some way or form. For the events industry, I think again the whole element of more strategic alliances and partnerships becomes fundamental, and we will definitely embark on that as well. Besides the funding that is always core, we just want to do better events, that provide better experiences and add more value to people and have concrete learning outcomes. I love large size events, when we do Special Olympics, World Games with 80,000 people there and 12 conferences around it for an entire week. But I also love the small size events that we do with GF and BF, where people that are completely different events, obviously, but where people have a really concrete, tangible learning outcome. And that's what I love, when people say, I can take something with me that I can actually apply tomorrow. If people say that, then we've done a good job.
That sounds like a great way, a great takeaway, or a great result of the efforts and the events that you're putting together. Kai, always a pleasure to talk to you. I'd like to ask you the final question of this episode, which is for you to recommend somebody that we should have as a guest on the podcast.
Yeah, I think it should be you. We see you, we hear you in this role as a moderator and great facilitator, and I cannot think of anybody doing that really better. The skills and everything that you have, that you bring to it. And when I say that, I don't necessarily mean that as a joke, but I think you had a lot of learnings in your new role now, also the last year, whether it's on the event side, what you heard and learned and saw, or running a podcast, I think is an interesting one. So I think someone should play you and interview you. I don't know who could do this, but I think it should be you. Alternatively, I would recommend Tim or Maria Shriver from the US, who are really great speakers, but have a great perspective on events and how events can actually change people's mind and create different and new behaviors.
Okay, Tim and Maria Shriver, who are partners and both experts in that area?
They are a sister and brother.
Okay.
And so they are in the US, people will know them, but it's about, of course, I think about what is interesting for someone like me to listen to, and that is how events change people's mind or behavior, because it's a big part of what I think we all need to do. We talk too much about operational, logistical elements, which are the practical. It's the practical work of what we do as event profs, but it's actually not a part that I am working with when we organize the event. So it's other event profs in the team doing that. I look at this, what the event should do, and what should it be for people who are attending. And this is what Maria or Timothy Shriver could well talk about. But my first choice again would be you. So
thank you very much. Appreciate it. To do a little Inception episode where I interview myself, that could be kind of interesting. Kai, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for being such a wonderful guest on the Event Manager podcast, and I hope you enjoyed your time with us.
Thank you so much, and best wishes. Stay safe and be well.
Thank you for listening to this edition of the Event Manager podcast. Please subscribe and rate the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. For the latest news and the best articles on technology and innovation in the event industry, head over to eventmb.com.